What's up? I'm architect Drew Paul Bell, and today's video is part of that monthly blog post series called Architalks, where multiple architect bloggers talk about the same topic at the same time and give you a variety of takes on the same topic. Today's topic is career path. Okay, so when I was in college, I felt like a common message was always fed to us in school. It was that like if you can do architecture, you can do anything. You can go be a photographer, you can go do videography, you can go do any other kind of creative, artistic endeavor that you want to go do. And I've said this as well before. I think one of my very first YouTube videos was about this, and I think there's a lot of truth to this, but I also think that there's something a little overindulgent about the idea, so we're going to get into that. What else can you do with an architecture degree? You can do a lot of things, because architecture trains you to think with both your left brain and your right brain. It trains you to think both logically and creative. And what's interesting, I have one of my neighbors here is running like a startup. They're inventing, I forget what it's like a tech startup, and he has this company that's going, and he's hired somebody to do his marketing. The person he's hired to do his marketing was actually formerly a product designer, like an industrial engineer. I think he designed drills for either Black & Decker or Mitsubishi or somebody like that. And he said that he hired that guy, and he told me that he would rather hire somebody who's done something like that than somebody who was just trained in marketing, because the way that he had to make decisions, the way that his training was, he had to know that if they were going to redesign the drill and move the battery pack, you can't just move the battery pack without having a huge huge other network of things and decisions that have to be changed, and stuff's not going to fit together. There's consequences to your decisions, and the kind of learning that we have to learn to be good at with architecture or with things like industrial engineering and product design, that can easily translate into like a multitude of other things. Okay, whether that's designing marketing plans or dealing with business, you have the left brain abilities and the number crunching abilities to be able to adapt to engineering type things as well as artistic type things. But where I think that this message sort of gets a little overindulgent is it kind of feels like there's something about if you convince some architecture student that, oh, you could go do photography instead, that almost seems easier, right? Because you don't have to get permission to go do photography. You don't need to pass 6 ARE exams, and you don't have to go intern for several years, and you don't have to get a degree to go be a photographer, okay? And I'm not trying to diminish photography at all. I suck at photography. I'm not good at that. You know what I mean? And so I got massive respect for things like photographers. But I think that a lot of students, they hear this message that you can go do anything, and then they're coming at it from the wrong way. I'm worried that there's a lot of students that think about taking an easy way out, and they want to go do something else because they think it would be easier, not because they think that they would love it more. Okay? So there's a difference between going after what you want and going after what you think is easy. If it kind of stems from where your motivation is. Because let's say it's easier for you to go be a photographer, you can get people to pay you to take portrait photographs for a couple of years. How rewarding is that really going to be for you 10 years down the line when you kind of get bored with it, you know? Whereas architecture, maybe it takes you 10 years to even hit the ground running, and after that though, if that's actually what you want, it feels like it's more rich. Now, I'm the first person to tell people that you ought to go after whatever it is that you love, whatever it is that you want. I think that if you're creative enough, you can find a way to get paid to do what it is that to do something that you love. And maybe it's not getting paid $200,000 a year, but I think that you could at least, it would be better to make $60,000 a year or $80,000 a year doing something that you love than to make $120K doing something that you hate. Because I know people who do that and they hate it. And everybody who I know who's doing that, they're in finance or they're in some tech industry job where they're just have this barrage of crap dumped on them all the time. They hate it, and they're getting paid a lot of money, but they all have an exit plan. They're all talking about how they're going to get out of it in a few years. Those people, they're making bank when they're in their late 20s. Unlike architects, we're not making a lot of money like that earlier in your career. They're making a lot of money, but they actually don't love what they're doing. And that seems like it's a cliche and that doesn't actually happen, but no, that actually happens. And I know a lot of people who are doing that. So really the message that I want to convey with this video is there's nothing wrong with going and just being a straight up architect, okay? Now that's what I want to do, okay? You can sit around and talk about how, you can do all these different things, and that's great, but as I've said before, the word decide, to decide on something, that suffix, decide, side, it's the same root of the word suicide and homicide. It means to kill off. To decide, it may mean to unkill one thing, but to unkill one thing means that you're killing other things. you have to sacrifice other potentials. Yeah, you could go be a photographer and a videographer, and you could be an engineer, and you can plan out lighting design, and you can do apps that help produce better architecture, and you can do all those things. You can do any one of those things, but you cannot do all of them. You have to decide on one or two. All right, and again, not to diminish any of those other things. I might have called them the easy way out earlier. I think it's the easy way out for certain people. I don't think that, again, it comes back to the motivation. If you're doing it because it's easier, I don't respect that. If you're doing it because you like it more, I have massive respect for that. You know, it's a subtle difference about where you're coming from. And I think that the important part is to actually go after what it is that you want. And if what you want is to be an architect, you don't need to listen to all the people telling you about all the things you could be doing. It's totally fine to hunker down and decide that you're going to be an architect, and you're not going to indulge the distractions of dabbling in graphic design and being a web page designer and all that stuff. You don't have to go do all that. You could just become a legitimate architect. That's a perfectly valid way of going about things, and you don't have to be lured into thinking that these other things are sexier and going to be cooler for you. It might not be. So I've obviously decided to become an architect. I have a couple of, let's say I have some side ventures, right? I'm doing this YouTube channel thing, and that's fun for me. When I was at the AIA conference a few months ago in New York, the best lecture that I saw was from a guy named Randy Deutsch. I think he's actually on this Architalks monthly series. He posts every now and then. And he talked about the importance of, within a career, having multiple side projects. He said, and I really resonated with this, and I really respected this. He said that he always knew that he wanted to be an architect. That was going to be his primary goal. So he had kind of like this primary spine of his career. Then on the side, he would have these other little things that were kind of side experiments on 7-year cycles. This is what I liked about it. He said that he was an author for like 7 years. He was writing books. Then he did I think he did screenwriting for 7 years. He also went on and dabbled in stuff like urban design. Like within his firm, they had an urban design department, and he would go take the person out to lunch who was in charge of the urban design department. He would stay late on days when they had deadlines coming up, and they could use some help. And in doing that, he got to focus on architecture, actually progress, right? My big thing is I hate to see people get distracted. If their main goal is to be an architect, but they get distracted by it would be fun to go be a photographer, then that's what I worry about. But what Randy did was he said that he was going to be an architect. That was his primary path. And then on the side, he focused on writing for a period of time. Then he focused on urban design for a period of time. And then what happened was when the recession hit in 2008, their firm, I think he said they had 200 people, got reduced to 30 or 40 people. And he said that they kept him around. And it wasn't that he had gone to Yale. It wasn't that he was the most he didn't have the most degrees and the most awards or any of that stuff, but because he had dabbled in the urban design stuff, he proved himself to be a very valuable part of the office. So it was that side project that actually led to him maintaining a job through the recession. All right, and then think about if you're going to do architecture and you're going to do photography on the side, you can do that for 7 years or whatever, build that up, and you can make a little bit of cash on the side doing that maybe. And he has this graph where you're kind of going down, you're going up. Within your career, you're going to hit certain inflection points where maybe you're at the top of your game. Maybe the economy's going really great and you're making a lot of money. But that's on one level, that's kind of when people want to just keep riding the high and think it's going to keep going great. But then there's other people who they exit at that point in time. They start the side venture, and the side venture sucks at first, but then you're still going up on the main graph. Then as that side venture starts to take off, that main venture may plummet. And so then what you have is you have the opportunity to make money on that side venture. And it's about exiting and dabbling, starting the stuff on the side at the proper times, right? And it's hard to identify. But an example of this recently was actually Zinedine Zidane, the manager of Real Madrid, right? They won the Champions League final. They had won tons of championships. They had a huge, amazing winning streak, and he stepped down at the top of all of that. That's kind of the attitude, right? Is when things are going really well is when you got to start looking on the side projects, figure out that other thing that you could do because you're an architect. That's the time to start experimenting with that, seeing if you can pull that off, seeing if you can make that work. So I guess the main message with this is that if you're going to experiment with the other things that you can do as an architect, I would encourage you to stay focused on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. If that is to become an architect for you, don't get lured away by all the other things you could be doing, because you can get distracted by a million other things. I would say it's important for you to stay focused, decide on what you're going to do, cut out all the other opportunities, but focus on 1 or 2 side projects here or there, not 17 side projects, right? 1 thing on the side, maybe 2. But keep your eye on the prize, and if you want to be an architect, go be an architect. You don't have to, just because you can go do anything else doesn't mean that you have to. Okay, so I hope that this video helps. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to click on the links down below that will show you the other blog posts on this topic today on career path. So I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you next time.